Hey everybody, welcome to this week's, I can't talk, blah, blah, blah. Welcome to this week's live stream. My brain got ahead of my mouth. Anyway, hope everybody's doing good today. So we are gonna turn up the watermelon pen blank, which I forgot to bring over here. I'm very excited about this one. When we were pouring it, that green combo that we did looked really good, and the pink and the green look good. So I'm hoping that this thing's a winner. Kind of, if the watermelon color turns out good, that's probably going to be the final color that I'm going to be releasing. So we'll have to see. I got lots of other options if this one's like, meh, it's not that great, kind of thing. But I'm hoping that we can kind of clinch that up, and then things will be kind of rolling sooner than if we didn't know what was going on, kind of thing. The main thing is I got to pick the final 5 colors so that I can order the labels. Once that happens, then things are going to start rolling with these pigments, I think. So should be pretty good. So let's see here. Who's up in the chat? I know Mike's not here. He's got all kinds of things going on. We got Kevin's here, and Bruce, and Vinny, and Mark L's in the house. Mike Lex is here. And let's see, did I say Bruce? Bruce. Jennifer's here. Nice, nice. Welcome. And David Bingham and Jim Spalding's here. And I got my plane tickets to SWAT. So that is 100% go. Very looking forward to that. That's going to be a really fun one. I haven't been there for a long time. And, out of like the turning symposiums, those types of events, definitely SWAT was my favorite, hands down. So I'm looking forward to getting back to that. There's other events that are pretty cool too, but I think that's probably one of the best ones of those. Obviously, I like the Turner's Warehouse open houses. That's totally different though. But yeah, SWAT. So if it's at all in the cards for you, if you're in the area or if you can get out there, highly recommend it. There's going to be lots of people there this year again, and one of the things that I really like about the SWAT specifically, like Turning Symposium, the SWAT, the Southwest Area Turners Association, I think is what that stands for. They know what they're doing setting up an event. They do everything perfect. They've had a lot of years doing it, and the people that are running it really know what they're doing. So that's kind of, you can kind of tell, because some of the other ones, yeah, things just aren't super smooth sometimes and all that, and they do a really good job. And obviously everybody, like the vendors that come there, that's what ends up happening, is if it's set up properly, if it's run well, then all the attendees are happy, and even more people start going, and then the vendors are happy, and even more vendors come. So it's usually a really big event, and it's fun. They just do a really good job. All right, so we got William Morins here, and let's see. Yeah, you don't have to, but even the demonstrations and all the stuff, the presentations that they do are really good there too. I would say that there really aren't that is the one thing. If you're going to go to a turning symposium, any of them, I've never been to one where the presentations were not good, or something like you didn't get something out of those, like the classes or the demos or whatever that they do, that they set up. I'm going to be doing some demos, quote unquote, at the Turner's Warehouse booth. I'm not demoing for SWAT this year. I'm actually going to look into trying to do it next year. I think, coming out with the pigments, that might not be a bad idea to do a little bit of a demo, get a little bit of marketing going on that stuff. So, and we'll have to see how the pigment stuff goes, but I was thinking maybe I'll do it next year. A lot of people were trying to get me to do it this year, but I haven't been to one of these things. I haven't done a demo like that for a long time. And I'm like, let me just dip my toes in a little bit. Let me just attend first, and then maybe next year I'll do it. So. All right, so I'm going to go to the overhead view again, kind of this is kind of a better camera, better lighting. So this is what we got. Now, I have one thing to mention. I don't know if you guys remember, or if you weren't here. So when we poured these, I was like, hey, I'm gonna use the Beast So we did a 12 blank pour, right? And that's fine. You know, we did that, and it was cool. It worked out really well. But while I was doing it, I'm like, man, the resin is like setting up way fast. And it was warm in the shop that day, I think last week. But like, I mean, I really felt, I'm sitting there in my brain, and it's not like I have like a super internal clock, but I'm like I swear I should have had like 5 more minutes. And the interesting thing is, I realized why that is. So I ordered 10 gallons of resin last time from Alumilite, and, you know, busted it open and all this stuff. And I didn't look at the label for the resin they sent me. They sent me regular clear. So I literally had 5 less minutes to you know, get this stuff poured. And it's not really a huge deal. I really wish that they would have not done that, but it throws your timing off for sure. And the one thing I wanted to say is, since that happened, I wanted to mention, you know, I usually use the slow set clear, and that's generally what I recommend most people use. I think it's a great all-around resin. Like, it does anything. If you want to pour gigantic bowl blanks, go right ahead, dump the whole thing in there, right? It can handle being poured all at once at, you know, in a gigantic amount. But you can also do pen blanks with it. And the beauty of it is, compared to, you know, there's clear, Alumilite clear, like the regular version, and then there's clear slow set, or clear slow, whatever they call it. And the interesting thing about those two is there's literally no difference between them mechanically, like their working characteristics. I find it kind of fascinating, because it's usually when you start messing around with like, you know, how long is the working time, when you start changing the characteristics of a resin, you're doing it with chemistry usually. And so I just find it fascinating that they you know, originally the clear regular version, that was the one that they came out with first, and it's got like a 7-minute working time. And everybody loved it because it turned excellent, it polished well, it cast well. The only, I guess, drawback, quote unquote, is that you got to pressurize it, but I would recommend doing that with any resin anyway. But then they came out with the clear slow, and you're like, oh, is this going to be like the same? And it's literally physically exactly the same. It turns exactly the same, polishes, all that stuff, but you got 12 minutes of working time. But what I wanted to mention is, if you're somebody that does mostly, like, you know, I don't know, just a couple colors, you're not really doing a lot of blanks at once, is another thing. You know, 12 pouring 12 at once, obviously it's doable. Okay, so as long as you get everything set up and you can get going, you can pour lots of blanks at once with the regular version. But the more complicated things become, the harder it is to get things poured and in the pressure pot, and everything's done within the working time. And the biggest problem, I would say, generally I can get away with just using the regular for most things. However, the problem with it is, you know, we mix the cups, and we were taking the temperature to find the right temperature to pour at. The problem is, if you're going to be doing a lot of like passes of pouring for some reason, it's going to take, you know, once it's time to pour, the act of pouring is going to take quite a while. That's where the drawback is, because the gel time period, you know, once it hit, let's say that I wanted to pour at 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so I take the temperature, it's 95, and I start pouring. Well, the period between when I can start pouring and when it's hardening is shorter than the clear slow. And so to get to the right temperature with clear slow, I've got a bigger window of time to kind of take my time. Like, I find myself kind of rushing at this point with the regular stuff. So that's the only difference. But one of the advantages is, in the pressure pot, time under pressure is only really, I don't know what the label says, if there's instructions on this stuff. Let me see if it says instructions. I'm not fully aware of this one. Let's see, dry time. Yeah, so they say like demold time. That would be like typically the thing that you would want to look at for how long does it really need to be under pressure, and that's like 45 minutes, maybe an hour. Okay, compared to like 2 to 4 hours with the slow. So one of the advantages is you can turn over pressure pots a lot faster with the regular stuff. So there's advantages, there's drawbacks. You cannot pour massive, like bowling ball size castings with the regular one. But another advantage is if you're doing label blanks, that works better. I wouldn't recommend doing like very small pours, especially clear small pours with the slow version of it. So I just wanted to kind of cover that a little bit and mention, like, that's why it's setting up on me fast, because it's the faster setting one. Luckily, we're getting another 10 gallons of the right stuff sent out next week, I think. Let's see here. So, and I don't know if you guys noticed, up at the top, I pinned a question of the day. And it looks like Jim's on top of it. I just thought if you guys have any suggestions, let me know. Maybe type like the capital QQQ in the chat so that I can kind of see. I know it's not really a question, but that way I kind of typically notice those things in the chat a little bit easier. That way I can kind of see what's going on. I can always go back and watch back after the stream's over. But if you have any ideas for stuff, let me know. I just thought, I haven't asked you guys for a while, or came up with like ideas from you guys. I thought that would be kind of fun. So let's see here. Any other questions? Or I'm going to read that thing from Jim in a minute here. Yeah, a lot of the vendors do have presentations. Like I'm going to be doing little things at Turner's. We're probably just going to cast blanks or whatever. Would I ever come to Maker Central? I can't. I would like to, but it's so expensive to get out there. I would need to be like demoing or doing that stuff, and I haven't. It's just tough right now. Prior to the pandemic, I was kind of ramping up my like doing demos and all that kind of stuff. So I was doing a lot more events. 2019, like I was taking off on that, and then 2020 came and it just ended. And then now at this point with my parents' health and all that kind of stuff, having to kind of help them out, time is just kind of tough to be doing a lot of traveling. And like I said, I'd have to be doing demos, and I just haven't been doing those for a while. So I'd have to kind of reestablish all that kind of that network of with vendors and stuff to be able to get my travel and everything paid for. Let's see, Mark, material science. Yeah, I know, it's crazy. I know. It's just interesting to me. There are other brands that have like different times and all that kind of stuff with resins, and in certain cases, what I've found is I think it's easier to just play around with how fast things set up with urethane resins. I've seen more urethane resins that seem to be pretty similar regardless of the thing that the working time version that you pick. Those seem to kind of stay a little bit more regular across the different versions compared to like epoxy. They have to change things radically with epoxies, and so the fast they just end up not really in the ones that I've used. The epoxies tend to just be all over the board as to how they actually turn. I mean, like for example, I guess I don't have any here, but Amazing Clearcast from Alumilite. They've got the version that's the plus, and then they have the regular, and just the difference with the UV inhibitors in it. So the ACC Amazing Clearcast Plus, that one is the one that I use for certain things, hybrids and things. That one turns way better. Like the Amazing Clearcast, the regular one, if you get a resin cast blank, if like some people I think use it, if you get one and it's like hard, like it sounds different, it seems chippy, kind of almost brittle, but very hard. Usually that's the Amazing Clear, or if they say that it's Alumilite, quote unquote. I've seen this blank makers say, "Oh, I'm using Alumilite," but they're using Amazing Clearcast, and those blanks are hard. So I don't like using that. But if you use the Plus version, it's a little bit more expensive, but it turns a lot better, and you have the UV inhibitors in it. So that's there's just differences. Whereas with clear and clear slow, you put it on the lathe, sand it, polish it, turn it, you couldn't tell the difference at all. There's no way. So Jim, question of the day is, you own an Australian cattle dog. Look like her coat. Oh, that's cool. Very cool. What's going on here? I don't want to add effects. I'd have to see what the colors are. So maybe if you could like email me like a picture, I could look into that. That'd be kind of fun. Let's see. Ann's here now, and Tim Olson, and Tim Costello too. You're returning. That's cool. If you missed the stream because you're turning, I mean that's the way to do it. So we'll go back over to the overhead view real quick. So what I'm going to do, one of the pens that I really like, one of the pen kits, is the Zen. So one of the cool things is it's a single blank pen, but it's a longer one. And then what you get is this magnetic, oh, I don't know if I can get that off. Okay. It's a magnetic cap, and it also posts on the back end. But the nice thing is you get a roller ball with it. So it's kind of a light pen. I don't know. It's a pen that I have a few of them, and I pick them up a lot. I enjoy using them. So I thought, oh, let's make a watermelon Zen. And so that's what I titled it. But we're all ready now. One thing that I messed up, I thought I took a measurement of the tube. I should have just looked at the stupid instructions for this thing, but technically the tube is a 10.5 millimeter, like so the same size as your junior kits, like the smaller bushings, or whatever. There's a 12.5 that you would drill out and a 10.5, and I should have used a 10.5 millimeter drill bit. I took the measurement of the tube and it looked like it was the same as a Sierra, so I used a 27/64, and the problem is I drilled it, and there also might have been an issue with my drill bit. I used a new one that I had never used before. And so there's actually a little bit of a gap. So I'm hoping that nothing happens here. Usually you don't want that. I don't know if this is coming in, if it's able to focus. Oh, I can't get the thing to, maybe if I hold it up here, get my hand out of the way. See how there's like a gap on the edge of that tube? And there probably will be on this end a little bit too. And get it on the camera. It's not big. I'm not that worried about it. But when you do have these gaps, especially at the end, I find that can, there's usually not a glue bond there. So you can get catches and shatter blanks at the end there. So just be aware of that. Try and make sure that you're getting the right drill bit when you're choosing them, for the size. And frankly, you can even use calipers, and sometimes you may have a drill bit that's actually a closer match. It may be kind of an odd one or something like that, but sometimes you can get a little bit tighter, match between the tube and the drill hole. And then also, like I was saying, I used another drill bit that it was acting kind of funny on the lathe. Like when it was drilling, it seemed like it was wobbling or doing something weird. I don't know. It was kind of a weird thing. But if your drill bit is, I don't know, if somehow the action is moving, you can end up with a wider hole if the drill bit's kind of moving around in there. So let's see here. David's got, how about hockey teams? The Mammoth, I don't even know about that. Vegas Knights. Got to be honest, guys, I'm probably not going to be doing team color stuff because that's kind of what the blanks I sell are, So we'll have to see about that, but I'd rather keep that as like a product that I sell rather than doing that. I might do it though. Who knows? We'll see. Let's see here. Yeah, a lot of times I'll just kind of, that's what I do usually. But I think, I don't know. We're going to try it. We're going to see if it doesn't blow up. Hope it doesn't blow up. And like I said, I used the gap filling thick CA glue. So I don't know. But I do think there's maybe like a little bit of a gap there. It worries me more on the ends. That's where it gets the thinnest at the end usually. And that's where if I've ever blown up a blank. I don't do that a lot, and I do think that a lot of times when people blow up a blank, it tends to happen at the end of turning, like when it's really thin, and it also tends to happen when you're at the ends of the blank. And I firmly believe that a lot of that problem, when you get that kind of blown up blank catch thing, that has to do with gluing, typically. And so if you can get those, especially those ends glued down and held in, good to go. What's the status of the UV gear shift knob? It's fine. Yeah. So that's the interesting thing about this stuff is, Alumilite has that amazing ClearCast Plus with UV inhibitors, and I'm pretty yeah, the one that's on there right now is just Alumilite Clear Slow. It has no UV inhibitors extra or anything in there, and it hasn't yellowed at all. Now, somebody pointed out that your car windows have UV blockers in the windows, like in the glass. They kind of block out UV radiation, or at least some of it. So I'm guessing that maybe has something to do with it. But the crazy thing is, I'll leave blanks sitting around in my shop, and just the fluorescent lights have enough UV radiation. I'm guessing that's what it is. Or maybe it's just time, or who knows what. But blanks yellow in my shop. So it's kind of crazy that thing hasn't yellowed at all in my truck. Because it gets hot, and it's not like I garage it. It feels the summer heat, and it also gets sun. I don't even have tinted windows or anything. So I don't know, it's doing good. It's one of those things, you don't necessarily have to worry about some of these things as much as you might think. But then on the other hand, some things just turn yellow. It's just kind of, resins all generally turn yellow eventually. So I don't know why that is. So let's head over to the lathe, and we'll get, oh, that's the wrong camera. We'll get things rolling here. I think I saw a comment I'm going to check out. We're on the right, yep, we're on the right one. Let's get some room here. Get that going. Get this guy set up. So, and I realize I don't have like the technical Zen bushings, but what it is, I'm pretty sure that the diameter that you want, if for some reason you had two sets of junior, the junior gent, if you had two sets of them, you can use on the body part of the pen, the larger one, and I do randomly have two sets of junior bushings. That seems to be the right diameter. So I think that's why I don't have Zen specific bushings, because you can get around it by just using well, like I said, you got to have two sets of them, but you can use the juniors. The larger on the body, so the larger of the two smaller ones. All right, so let's see. I need to get my phone out. We got our dust collector ready. Perfect. There was even a link notification. Okay, so we're going to put that up there. I'm very satisfied with that notification. Thank you. It's asking me questions. Bought your ebook 30 months ago. 30 months. 3,000 pens down and 250. Nice. That's awesome. Pink, black, and white cam. Yeah, that would be a cool one. I've wanted to do one of those. That would be pretty neat. Is there a chart anywhere that will cross-reference bushings for pens? There have been some in the... I've run across one if you're a member of the penturners.org, the National Association, the Association of Pen, IAP, International Association of Pen Turners. And I think is it IAP.com or org? What is that? I'm going to go look it up for you guys real quick. It's like way back in the day, before there was like Facebook groups, there was like these like bulletin board things online. So yeah, it's penturners.org. I think somebody put one, so it's like, they call it a forum. I don't know if anybody remembers those. It's a forum, online forum for pen turning stuff. And there's a wealth of information on there. So there's like, different, it's kind of like a big conglomeration of like a bunch of different, like almost like Facebook. It's like one big Facebook group with like little smaller groups underneath there, and they got the the bulletin board stuff. I'm pretty sure somebody on there put one together, like a spreadsheet. But typically these days, I mean, you can usually go the wherever you buy the pen kit. A lot of times they have like instructions on it. So were you asking? Oh, they have an app. That's cool. Chart, cross reference. So I'm not sure. I never found that. So like a lot of times I just use my calipers and just kind of see what's going on. All right, Jim, thanks for stopping in. Type the size and it'll tell you the kits. Oh, nice. So that's good. Usenet. No, I don't know what that is. All right, so let's get this thing fired up. Got my goggles on. I'm really looking forward to seeing how these colors turn out. Nope. My tool rest blocking my tailstock thing. All right, now we're ready. All right, let's stop it and let's see where we're at here. See what it's looking like. Oh yeah. That's looking pretty good so far. But I can't wait to get this pink polished. So it's interesting because that's pretty crazy. So the green and the interference green, like it really kind of almost feels like it like bled together, but I don't think that's what's going on, because you get little blobs, but the two colors, I don't know, like play off each other somehow. So it almost looks like one color. So if you were going for more separation with between the get this thing lined up a little bit better. If you were going for more separation, so we use that Kelly green pigment that I use, liquid pigment, and then we did like a dirty pour with interference green with those two, and then just poured the combination of those all at once. If you wanted more separation between the interference green and the like whatever other color, the Kelly green, you would want to just pour those two separate. Don't do the dirty pour thing. But this is pretty interesting, where you've got, it's like bands, like little areas where there's like the interference happening, and it almost gives it like a texture. It's very interesting. It worked. I think that's probably going to work out really well for like a watermelon look, having kind of different shades all mixed together. You can also do it by just doing like two different shades of green. That would work. Oh, that'll work too. This is kind of an interesting one that it's just not the first thing that you would maybe think of to get that kind of an effect. All right, we're getting pretty close already. So William's asking if I ever done the recasting shavings. Yeah, and it can be good, it can be bad. It seems like it would be really neat, but what can happen is the shavings are so thin that, you know, you would think that there'd be like a lot of color with these shavings, but a lot of times what ends up happening is they're so thin that there's not really that much pigment in it, and so then you add resin and it just kind of all looks sort of muted, clear. So that's one issue that you can run into with that. But if you can get enough color, you know, if you put a lot of color in it, it can be kind of cool. I wasn't that impressed with it, so I've done it like once or twice, but it's not really something that I want to do a lot of, you know. So with these longer kits, a lot of times, you know, when you're standing up on the lathe, you're like right up on it. It's really hard to tell, you know, if depending on what you're going for, if you wanted like a little camber or whatever, but it's kind of hard to tell just like standing right over it and seeing what the actual shape is. So a lot of times I'll step back from the lathe and kind of get down. It helps if there's something kind of dark, like this cone is nice. It gives me kind of a darker background to really see the shape. You know, is it flat? Is it kind of like fat on one end, or is there a big bump? So that'll kind of help a lot of times to kind of get you where you want to be. Alright, so it looks like I'm getting pretty close here. I think that's good. A lot of times with these the Zen pens, you know, there's not a lot of room. I mean, I guess you could make it super bulbous, but they tend to work pretty well going pretty flat. I still like a little bit of A little bit of a bump, a little bit of rounding, but kind of fat right there, I think. I'm gonna take, if you really want to get crazy, you can pull out your calipers and all that, but you usually see what's happening if you just kind of take a step back. Okay, I'm gonna quit messing with it. Good enough. I think I'll stop before I blow it up. Yeah, so it's not looking too bad. I like the color combo. And just to mention, everybody that's in the Pen Blank Club, those went out yesterday. So you'll be getting these, and then the other blank that's included in this month is so last time before the watermelon, we did the burgundy and navy for one batch, and we did the coral, robin egg, and black. So burgundy, navy, and gold, and then the coral. So should be interesting. So you'll be getting one of those two, sorry. So everybody's getting a watermelon, and then it'll be kind of a surprise to see which of those two, the burgundy, navy, gold, or the coral, robin egg, black. And part of the reason I did that, I mean, obviously we had two different options there, that we did, but also, if anybody has any feedback on the colors or anything like that, it'll kind of broaden, how many opinions might come back, feedback on two different blanks, Plus, I think I don't know, let me know for anybody that's in the Pen Blank Club. I think it's kind of fun if you don't exactly know what, for sure, which one am I getting. I think it's kind of, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't go with things that I would want, but if I was in the Pen Blank Club, I'd be like, oh yeah, surprise me. Makes it more fun when you open the box, I think, if you don't know everything. Which, I haven't done a totally, we haven't had any blanks that didn't turn out good on the stream. Whenever that happens, I just usually toss in something that I come up with. So I need to do that sometime. I think that'll be fun. See here. Yeah, I'm hoping that the pink really pops when we get it polished. That's an alliteration right there. Yeah, the patterning is kind of weird. I think we just did like a down up. I think I've kind of mentioned that where, depending on what type of stir stick, how it, whatever, how it's oriented, I'd have to go back and look exactly how I did it. I think I just did a down up kind of pull. So you can kind of pull it a little bit more, along the length. And if you do like where, you're like twisting like if it's got like a little hook at the end, you can get a little bit more of the kind of wrapping around pattern sometimes. I gotta be honest, we're playing with liquids and then shoving a stick in it and wiggling it around. So it's kind of hard to get exact, well, if you do this, it'll look like this. There's so many factors. What temperature is it? What resin is it? What colors did you put in it? How much pigment or mica? All these things kind of contribute to what the effects are going to be. Did they heat up evenly, throughout the cups? How much are you pouring? I mean, literally, how heavy of, each round of pouring, if you do it the way that I do it, where it's like one cup at a time. If you're pouring, big blobs of, one color at a time, that can change things. Or if you just have a very thin color in the middle plus blobs, it's so tough, That's why I try to do, for certain things, I try to really do the same things, over and over again. Try and keep things as consistent as possible, but I mean, even your best effort is not going to provide that kind of thing. Let's see, bought your... Didn't we already have that comment? The 3,000 pens and... Didn't somebody else say that exact thing? I'm glad the ebook's working for people, though. I'm actually really surprised about that. You create something like an ebook or whatever, and it's relatively cheap, I would say. But the crazy thing, I really expected, it's an ebook, it's like an electronic thing, and you get people. I figured most of the people that watch the stream and stuff that know what's going on, really know what's going on, probably are not going to be like, oh, this didn't help me, or this sucks, I want my money back. But you get random people that show up on your site because they found it through Google search, and they're doing something totally different than pen turning, or which it's not specific to pens or anything, but they're doing different things, and it maybe it's just not what they expected. So they want a refund. I figured that would, I'd have a decent number of those. But I haven't really, I think that book's been out for I don't know, 5 years, more. I think I've literally only had to refund, I've only had complaints 5 times, which is pretty good, which I think is good because I think I'm explaining what it is well on the page, the checkout, the web page thing. So it's not like there's any surprises in it where you're like, well, that's not what he said. But I do think that it's kind of helpful, and I think it's nice to understand. Everything in that book is something that, if I would have understood right at the beginning, things would have been a lot easier. Let's just say, it really helps to understand what's going on with the resin, and that's what I tried to, as easy as, without making it super technical and difficult to read or whatever, or understand. Just simply, here's how things are working when you're doing these resin things. All right, so we got a little bit of 600 grit gone. So that'll get it all smooth and nice. One thing, we were talking about Alumilite clear versus the clear slow. One thing that is not different is the full cure time. Okay, so there's the demold time, which is kind of that's what I look at for how long does it need to be in the pressure pot. That's how long until it's really hardened up. Initially, hardened up. But the full cure is, that takes longer. That's generally for most resins going to be days, up to a week usually, maybe longer even for some, random special use cases. But the full cure is 5 days, no matter which, clear or clear slow. So just to let you kind of know about that. But the demold time under pressure, you're looking at 45 minutes to an hour for the regular, just clear, versus 2 to 4 hours for the slow, and even longer in some cases with the slow. I generally leave pen blanks in longer than 4 hours. Typically, I'll just leave them in overnight. If I need to turn over pressure pots faster than that, then 4 hours minimum on the pen blanks. For larger castings, you can usually get away with somewhere between 2 and 4 hours. If it's kind of a thicker block, if you're doing the brick pours or handle blanks, 2 inch by 2 inch by 6 or something like that. Usually, even 1.5 inch PVC pipes, if you're doing a handle blank like that, that's 5 or 6 inches tall. Depending on what the temperature is in your shop, as long as it's not really cold in your shop. If it's room temperature and above, 2, maybe 3 hours is fine. I just find that with the pen blanks, the tops are usually a little bit kind of soft, and I'd rather just leave them in there. They tend to demold a little easier. But with the regular stuff, you know, I mean, 1 hour with pen blanks, you're good. You should be able to even demold them and be done. A lot of times if I need to turn pressure pots over, I won't even pull them out of the mold. I'll just pull the mold out. It's hard enough to take it out of the pressure pot after 4 hours for pen blanks, but I'll usually just set the mold aside. Trying to get this thing nice and well polished, so I'm putting a little extra time into this guy. With all my steps here. I want to get it as blingy as possible. I really do like the longer, you know, blanks. That's, you know, like I said, there's a few reasons I like the Zen kits, and it's just nice, you know, to really kind of show off more of the blank without interruption. You know, you can get a longer, technically, blank if you're using a 2-piece pen, but nice having uninterrupted. Let's see here. So I haven't been paying attention to the chat here. It'll be hit and miss. That's cool, David. If you can't tune in live, you know, we have the replays up. That way you can catch it whenever. Like I think it's kind of nice if you're like traveling, you can just catch up on it while you're flying or doing whatever, you know. We will miss you, but you won't totally miss out. Tim Olson likes the surprise. Yeah, I think it's kind of fun. I also think it's kind of cool to, you know, I wouldn't want to do that as like that's it. I think that it's cool to make the blanks and be like, oh yeah, these turned out great. And you can see on the stream, and you guys a lot of times help pick colors and do, you know, so I think that's kind of fun too, but it's kind of fun to yeah, you know, it's the beginner's guide, you know. And you know what it's for the people that literally are like, I've never done this before in my life. I want to start casting, you know, like what do you need to know? Because there's a lot of technical stuff, and that's why we cover that on this. It's just not all baked into one thing, you know. But yeah, resin can get technical, but it's not hard. That's the main thing. Like to do simple things. Put some colors together, make some pen blanks, you know, whatever. As long as you're not doing too much, trying to make it too complicated, it's pretty easy. You know, once you've done it once or twice, most people are like, oh, okay, that's not hard. It's just kind of that initial, like, kind of, okay, where do I begin? That was the biggest thing with the book. That's why I came out with it, because what I found was people would not, and I'm, you know, I think we're all, depending on the situation, you know, what we're talking about doing, I think everybody kind of has that, you know, you're like, I want to do this thing, but I mean, I don't even know where to begin. So you just don't do it. And I thought, you know, if I can bridge the gap, you know, for me, if I can kind of understand what's kind of going on, give me some tips, so that I don't just completely waste time and money entirely. Hopefully that'll get people to actually do it, you know. That's the first step. And I'm always very, you know, you're going to get accidents, like not accidents, but things are not going to work out every single time. They don't work out every single time for me still. But that failure rate is going to go down. But the interesting thing is, you know, when you get a failure, a lot of times you learn a lot more about something. Or, you know, sometimes I was going for something and it didn't work out that way, but the result I got was interesting. And a lot of the things, like the big, I don't know, revelations, like, I didn't get what I wanted, but I would have never thought of trying to get this effect, and like, how would you even get that? And so you learn those things, like, so that's how you can, you know, get this kind of an effect. A lot of times those things are things that you wouldn't have even guessed. All right, so we're going to get some, I'm getting my little strips out here. I like to use the Scott, I think it's called Scott, isn't it? Whatever, the shop towels. Is it made by Scott? Yeah, Scott shop towels. I just get them at Costco. I find them to be a little bit less abrasive feeling, rough. So I usually use them instead of the white paper towels for polishing things. They seem to work pretty good. Let's see, am I missing any questions here? Oh, so that's, oh, it is you, Tim. Okay. Sorry, I just saw that. I was like, wait a minute. Somebody literally just said that. Can you capture the comments made live in stream onto the saved video? Yeah, the comments are in also there. Some people don't redo the like live chat. It seems like. But you should, you can pull up the comments. Sometimes it may not default to having them there when you're watching the replay, but you can, there's like a click or a button. I don't exactly know. I can't point to how you do it, but you can pull the comments up. I let them, that's one of the settings that you can set, and they keep them available so you can read them. Accidentals, yeah, that happens too, where you do something and you're like, wow, that was perfect. Then you try and do it again and you're like, that's not it. Totally hear that. I mean, right now I'm trying to convert to pouring all of my team color blanks vertically. All right. And that, that's where this whole pigment thing came from, because I had to switch the type of, before I was using Alumilite dyes. Well, they're transparent, and that works fine if you're using an opaque resin. But I don't want to use that resin anymore because I don't like it. And I don't like having to cut the bricks. So there's all these reasons why I'm trying to convert, but I mean, I've poured hundreds of batches of blanks. So it's not only the fact that I need to get the color matched with a different pigment for all these team colors. It's the fact that I'm still learning how to get the results, like consistent results with the team color blanks. Mica powders are much easier to pour vertically. They don't tend to like bleed much, and I don't know, the results, I was really worried when I converted a lot of my blanks to pouring vertically, and I spent months doing tests, and I couldn't mess them up, basically. So like that's, right? Whereas liquid pigments can be a little bit more difficult. They're a little bit, the more mica powder you add to the resin, the thicker the resin gets. So it adds, and they, like I said, they don't bleed because the color chunks are bigger than in the liquid pigments. And so trying to like nail down like a way to do the team colors that I really like has taken some time. And like one time I'll pour it with, this temperature and this way, and then I do it again and it's different. I'm like, ugh. That's the hardest part of resin casting, is having something very specific in mind that you want, and then trying to get that effect, or that look in the final casting. That is by far the most difficult thing. Because we just can't, in most cases, without weird, crazy setups and things, we just can't get liquids to go exactly where we want them to. Put CA over a resin blank. There's really no need to do that. If you're having like significant problems for some reason getting it polished, you could, but it's really just kind of a waste of time because you're basically putting plastic over plastic. The only time that I would say that like 100% I would recommend it is if you're dealing with like a hybrid blank where you've got like wood or other, you know, type of material like that embedded in the blank next to resin, right? Like you've cast wood in resin. The problem with that is if you just try and polish, you know, stabilized wood, it's never going to get as glossy as the resin part, you know, the plastic part, because it's not a solid surface. So the light's going to refract, it's going to look a little bit more dull. Sometimes that's fine, it depends on what you're going for, but if you want an even sheen over the whole blank, then you'll put CA over it. The other thing is, you know, sometimes you want to seal, you know, keep things from getting contact from like air or even like moisture. You might want to just seal it. I always recommend definitely on pine cone blanks. Even if they had been stabilized, you still want to seal them. That way, you know, moisture can't cause any issues. Yeah, generally, there's no advantage to putting a CA finish that I know of over a plastic, you know, like a resin or acrylic blank. I think you're just kind of... There's nothing wrong with it though. Let me be fair. It's not like it's going to hurt anything. I don't know that there's any good reason to. Like I said, unless you really struggle with trying to get it, you can't get the resin to polish as well as a CA finish, then, you know, by all means, do whatever gives you the best results. But there's no need to. I wouldn't say that it's better. All right, so let's get the camera in the front here. Get you guys situated here. We'll get the big reveal. A lot of times the initial reveal, the lighting isn't so great in this angle, so I'll take it off the lathe. But I kind of like doing this where it's running right now, and then we'll turn the lathe off, and it'll come to a stop, and we'll see the results. Oh yeah, yeah, I like that pink. That's fun. This is kind of a fun one because you could add, you know, a little bit of mica powder to that, and you can make it pearly. Also, that's another thing is actually pinks with mica powders aren't the greatest a lot of times, especially if you're going for light. This is more of a hot pink. There is a pretty good hot pink mica color. That one's an easy one to kind of replicate, but the lighter pinks definitely are harder. Let's get this thing off of here. So I like this angle better. The light hits it. You're not getting as much reflection. I think these are winners. I'm pretty happy with that. So again, after I do the polishing, I like to take the bushings out. And then a lot of times you'll have just some gunk on the end. Polish, look at that. You don't want to be pressing your parts on that. It could squeeze out. It's not going to hurt anything, you know, but certainly don't really want that. Save you the step of having to wipe it off later. Very interesting though. So, you know, again, looking at the green, you know, we got a lot of the like interference mixture there, but on, I think it's this end. Let me look at this a little bit. Gotta look off camera. On this end, there's like a little bit of a blob of the interference kind of going sideways, but the rest of that is that Kelly green only. Just the pigment, the liquid pigment, you know. I really like that mixture though, with the interference and the pigment. Kind of dirty. It gives it, it's almost like it's got a texture, you know? Got that kind of darker, lighter. I don't know that it really gave exactly the effect that I was going for, where you have that rind layer. But I think that it matched. When you look at a real watermelon, I think that it helped really, if I would have just put that green pigment only, it wouldn't be as good for what we were going for. And even if I would have just gone with like a green, like a kind of a lime green or whatever, just one color mica, kind of the same thing. You'd get a little bit of that kind of pearl effect, but it wouldn't be as dynamic, let's say. So pretty sweet. Let's go over and put this thing together. Check my comments here. I'll go to the casting view. Yeah, I don't know, Randy. It's almost like a should you sand the tube or not thing. I think that 80 to 90% of people would say, I don't really want to put CA glue on a resin blank. I think that if you want to save yourself from the fingerprint thing, what I would actually recommend is either with the magic juice, the number 6, I think has a fingerprint and all that. Like it doesn't, it helps with that, the number 6 magic juice. But the other one is the ring bling from Turner's Warehouse. If you don't want to do the magic juice, buy the whole set, you're not going to use that. Ring bling from Turner's Warehouse. They don't really have like a label or whatever, but you can get it at Turner's Warehouse. It's kind of the same thing. It's like a final step polish where it's leaving it, kind of static free, and it helps relieve fingerprint issues. A lot of times things that have waxes in them, that's where you're going to run into problems. And that's why when I did buffing, I would never use the wax wheel, because you'd get fingerprints. And even the buffing compounds kind of tend to do that a little bit more, where you can kind of get a little bit more fingerprint. It's just kind of leaving something on there. So even if I buff, I'm going to hit it with possibly number 5, but also number 6 from the magic juice, because it's like it's cleaner feeling. Like it's just, I don't know. Like I said, I really feel like there's like anti-static properties to it, and it tends to just kind of work a little bit better for me. So that might help if you wanted another way of doing that without having to use CA glue also. Oh yeah, Wicked. That's true. Yeah, the mica or glitter. Yep. Well, so Kevin, the idea isn't to match the color of watermelon, because I mean realistically, watermelon's red, right? In real life. I was looking around and I liked this pink. I liked the shade of it, and I was like, I think that's called watermelon. I think that's a shade of color that people call watermelon pink, and it was pretty dead on. Looking at different stuff now, my sources, it was the internet. I don't know, but there were a lot of things that they called watermelon pink that were this tone. So I'm not going for. That wasn't the effect, if that's what you're saying. It doesn't look like watermelon itself, like the real fruit, but it is pretty close, I think, to and there's lots of different shades of that anyway. You got a lot of latitude calling something watermelon pink, but it was in that tone range. That's where that came from. This one's a little tricky. Come on. Oof. It's kind of going crooked. This Sometimes these longer ones can be a little bit harder to assemble. There we go. If you're just careful and just kind of, if it's going one way, then kind of flip it around. Usually you'll be good to go. I need to put something on this ram. Let's see, what were we talking about? Like a piece of felt? Do I have anything like that? I'd like to just do that. Cork would be nice. That would probably work. I swear that I've got like a sticky felt or something, I just don't know where it is. I'm gonna look into that. I'm gonna get something. For now, I'm just gonna cover that. This thing's metal. Let's get this thing out of the way. This ramrod thing is metal. Is there like a, yeah. I'm looking at, oh yeah, okay. There's like a plastic part there, so I was like, well, what's the deal with that? I don't even know what that does. I guess it just stops it. All right, so I'm just gonna kind of, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this with one hand here. Yeah, we'll get this thing going here. Just so I don't scratch up the end there, Hopefully this one will go in a little easier. I'm going to zoom in just so you can see a little bit better. Oh yeah, that one's going in nice. All right. One other thing, we're talking about like adding a CA finish on top of your resin. When you're assembling, that just adds one more thing. If for some reason you didn't, when I do a CA finish, I make sure that I like kind of sand off the end. But if you have CA glue overhanging and you put it together, you could crack your whole finish, which is going to ruin your day. The CA thing over a resin blank, it's just adding a extra complexity that I don't want to deal with personally. Oh, that's one thing. We're going to put a little bit of wax on the threads of that thing so it doesn't squeak when we unscrew it. And you can pretty much use anything. I've literally used like candle wax. So doesn't really matter what you use. And I have these little swab things. I bought a bunch of them a while ago, so I'm gonna use a little swabby. I usually just use a paper towel, but I have this Renaissance wax. You don't need to use, this is really expensive stuff, but I have it, so I'm gonna use it. And then we can just, you just use like a Q-tip. And if you just add a little bit of wax to these threads, then it won't squeak on you. Just work it a couple times and you'll be good to go. All right, and then our spring just drops in there. I'm going to get the threads on the top part here too. But I've literally just taken a candle and just kind of rubbed the threads. I was selling a pen and everything was at home or everything was at the shop, like the wax. But I was getting it ready to ship at home and I didn't have any paste wax or I had nothing. And I was like, oh, what am I going to do? And so I found a candle and it worked. Threads didn't squeak anymore. Get rid of that little thing. So like I was saying, it's just a good sized pen. It's small, usually kind of light, the Zen kits. They just feel good in my hands anyway. So I'm kind of partial to them. They work pretty good. And I like the magnetic cap thing. It's kind of cool. And it also, if you're someone who likes to post, I find that it kind of starts getting a little back heavy if I post this kit. So I usually don't do that. I think I got wax on my fingers here. It's getting all over the kit. Let's just put an end to the madness right now. Yeah, not too bad. Pretty cool looking. Let's zoom out a little bit here. I like the chrome with this. And it's so quick with the cap. You don't have threads or messing around, and it holds tight. It's good. And it doesn't fall, it's not going to fall off the back either. Good magnetic hold. But they work pretty good. Let's see how it writes. Gotta find something to write on. Try this out. Let's see what we got here. Oh yeah, that writes nice. It's kind of a nice. Oh, I can't spell. Yeah, rollerball. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think? Yeah, the Zen pens are fun. I like them. 3D printed caps. That's cool. Cardboard. AC. Let's see. I gotta scroll up here. So it's looking. Let's see here. Wicked. What was the question? Let's see. David Bingham. Talking about Facebook. Oh, is there any other media platform besides Instagram to share work with others? I haven't been as active on like social media. I mean, there's TikTok. There's also I think, and I don't know exactly. There's like Twitter, X. That's more of a conversation thing, But there's also something that's competing with Twitter. Called like Blue, maybe it's just called Blue. But yeah, for the most part, I think Instagram is probably the most popular place. Is it called Blue? Yeah, I think it's called Blue Social. And it's a little bit different. There's something about it. Oh, maybe I'm wrong. Proximity. I don't know about that one. I'm not sure. There's something else that's competing with Twitter at least, but yeah. So Tim Olson says, I saw a guy do glue boost over resin and showed side by side. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna add more gloss generally because you're just, no matter how good you are, you're never gonna polish it as well as like putting like that clear coat. And typically, like your urethane resins and epoxies, they're a little bit more, they're a little bit like CA glue is like hard, brittle hard. And that's generally, that type of thing is easier to polish. So like polyester resin blanks, polished excellent. Acrylic, like the true acrylic blanks, they polish really well because of the type, because of its characteristics. So yes, I mean, you can make the argument that you could probably get a better polish on it. It's just, do you want to put a CA finish over a piece of plastic? That's where it's, for me, no thanks. I don't want to add more time and effort to do that. When, you can get, most people are not going to look at, if you handed the same pen to the same person without them sitting next to each other, nobody's going to complain about that. As long as you did it as good a job as you could on the resin blank, I don't think anybody's going to say, oh, that could have been better. That's my thing, I guess, But, it's up to you. If you want to do a CA finish, there's no reason you can't do it. One thing I will say is if you're going to put a CA finish over plastic, don't sand up to like 50 billion grit. The CA glue needs something to hold on to. So I would maybe just like top out at like 1,000, maybe 2,000. I would not go that high. Generally, I would only go to personally like 600 typically. I think you're safe going up to 1,000, but it needs something to grab onto. If it's super smooth, that CA finish is going to fail on your resin blanks. So just, that's the one thing if you're going to do it. Let's see here. Invent an ER collet check for a square blank. They make square collets? Who does? Really? That's crazy. David's going to get some Zen. So I got a link over at Turner's Warehouse, now that you mention it. And there's a link down in the chat also, or in the description. So if you want to get them, Turner's has them. There's a few different styles, like platings. And then one other thing I just wanted to mention again, we got, I think, in stock 2, but I actually have 3 boxes of the faux burls. And that's another thing that I wanted to mention, so I do the over pours into my little faux burl mold. And so, the results of these things, I boxed up about 10 of them. Again, I don't pressurize them, so just know that. I've never had any issue with that. They turn out good, but you can recast them and make handles or stoppers, and they're cheap. They're $10 a box. So those are available on my website right now. But I wanted to mention using the regular, I found out, for anybody that didn't hear at the beginning, I realized that Alumilite sent me the wrong resin, and I've been using Alumilite Clear, not the Clear Slow. And I didn't realize it, and I'm like, why is this setting up on me so fast? The one thing that I've found is I don't have enough time to pour the extra. It's hardening up by the time I'm done. So that shorter window of time with the regular, the Clear regular version, the 7-minute working time one, you don't have as much time to do like extra pours and stuff. Like I wouldn't want to, it's so thick, I wouldn't want to make those faux burls out of it. Michael, you missed he had to go shopping with the wife. That's okay. We turned a pretty cool pen. I like this. So I'll have to look, and I'm gonna compare this to I've got a couple other colors, liquid pigment colors that are competing for the final 5th spot for the initial launch of the pigments. So right now, you guys all know we got Army Green is coming out, Coral, and then Robin Egg Blue. Those 3 are for sure. I've added Navy Blue to the list. I like that one. I know we did a poll, and I don't know if Navy Blue came out on top or not. I think Burgundy might have. But I think Navy Blue is the most useful out of the rest of the colors. I think that's a good one to add. You can kind of tweak it and play around with it, but it goes with a lot of things, and I think it's a good one to offer, kind of thing. So that one's coming out. And then we got the 5th spot, which I don't know, I'm really leaning towards this watermelon pink. I think that's probably going to be the last one, but the Kelly Green's on the list, Tractor Green's in there, Burgundy's in there. I think I got a couple others even that I've been thinking about. Let's see here. We've got a list somewhere. I don't know where it is though. Huh. Oh, there it is. Yeah, those, I think that's all, most of the ones that I'm looking at. There's other colors, and I generally plan to come out with even more colors down the road. But this initial launch, we'll see how it goes. So once I've decided on the 5th final color for the initial launch, then I can get the labels, then I can start bottling, and then we'll have them in stores soon. So it should be pretty fun. They have a fountain pens then? I didn't know that. That's cool. Sweet. Harold wants to see something with glow in the dark. That's a good idea. I like that. I like that. Let's see here. Oh, is that one more political? I wasn't sure. I don't really do a lot of social media. I got to be honest. Just don't have a lot of time for it. So Harold just made your first multicolor pour. Nice. Just barely got it under pressure. Yeah, eventually, that's the thing. Once you kind of get used to, and that's why I usually tell people to, when you're first, like your literal first pour, it's just funny because I've gotten emails in the past, people are like, well, I wanted to get into resin casting, so I decided to do a resin river table, and I bought 500 gallons of resin and poured it all at once, and it blew up in my face. And I'm like, why would you do that? So I always say, just pour, make a pen blank, do maybe a couple colors, a couple different mica powders. Go for simple on the first ones because it's even less, it's just awkward. You're like, I've never done this before. How do the parts work? Even like stirring the cup is kind of not something you do all the time, right? So simplify it and mix them together. But over time, really it only takes probably like 5 to 10 times. The stirring, the mixing, the pouring, all of those things tend to become easier, so you're not even worried about that, and you'll find that you'll get better at getting things like ready quicker. That over time definitely happens. So then you just got to focus on the pouring and all that kind of stuff. But it's a little bit of muscle memory is involved, but overall, I also like doing the simpler things, so that you get a win out of the gate. You don't want to just try it and then it fails. Nobody likes that. It's not very fun. You may not make the most amazing thing on the planet the first time, or first 10 times maybe even, but as long as you're making things that are usable and good enough, you get a win out of it, and you go turn it and have fun with it. So congratulations on your first pour. I'm sure the blanks look great. I'm sure they do. Very rarely am I like, whoa, that was terrible. On the first one. Most people, it takes a little while, and eventually, you'll kind of, down the road, you'll figure your technique out. We've been talking about it a lot of times. We're pouring liquids together and hoping everything turns out great. So eventually you'll kind of figure out that the way that you pour things, like the way that it feels good, because there is differences, like how high are you pouring it, how much are you pouring, and you'll kind of figure out, like, I pour it this way, this is how I like to pour things, and you'll kind of figure out like the timing, the temperature, and all that kind of stuff. That'll come too. So it just takes a little bit of practice. So pretty cool though. That's fun. Let's see here. Gonna buy the starter kit of one of each. Yeah, actually, I never thought about that. I guess I might. I don't know if I'm gonna have like a one of each color kind of thing. I might do it where I might be able to do it on my website, where if you like buy all of them, you get like a discount or something like that. Well, so actually, what I will say, make sure everybody in the chat, if the liquid pigment stuff, that's coming out, the Color Lab pigments that I'm coming out with, if that's something you're interested in, definitely go sign up for my email newsletter, because I'm probably going to have like a discount on launch. Even if you follow me, it'll probably be across the board though. A lot of times with like pen blanks, like right now, I usually do like a weekly special, something's kind of on sale. But I think when we launch this, I'll have a discount code on YouTube, and it'll be the same thing probably across the board. But if you want to make sure you don't miss out on anything, sign up for the email thing. That's where you get all the discounts there. So sweet. But I appreciate it. Yeah, hopefully you guys will like these pigments. That's I'm in the process of converting all those team colors. I'm really liking it. And I don't want to worry people. I was saying I've poured lots of different batches of blanks with these team colors, and I haven't been happy, quote unquote. I'm hard to make happy, and I need to make sure that I'm getting a certain level of consistency with the blanks. So it's not that it's hard. The one thing that I will say is with the liquid pigments, you're going to want to probably add more than you think you need to add. That helps to make sure that you've got really good solid color in there. And it also tends to, what I'm finding is as long as you pour, wait kind of the same timing, maybe a little bit higher temperature before pouring than maybe with mica powders, but you don't have to go off the scale with any of that stuff with the temperature. But I do find that if you add, like the more pigment that you add in there, the less and I'm going to quote unquote call it color bleed. It's what I've figured out is it's not color bleed. It's just if you've got like thin layers of two different colors, and one of them, especially the yellow, yellows tend to be yellow. I was talking to my pigment supplier, and he's like, yellow is just the weakest. It's one of the weakest pigment colors out there. And so if you've got things layering, what ends up happening is you're just seeing through two thin layers. So if you blobbed two big blobs together, that's not a big deal. But if you've got a little kind of thin wisp, you can get a little bit of what looks like bleed, but it's just because you can kind of see through those two layers. So the more pigment you add, the better off. The more opaque everything is, even at thin amounts. That's what I've found. But you don't need to add like ridiculous amounts on every pour. It's just in certain cases, it tends to help to add a little bit more. And I'm still doing some experiments with these new pigments to see like what is the range, like what is the maximum that you can add, which I think we might do on the live stream, do some kind of like really crazy amounts just to test it out, like dump in like, 10% of it in there and see what happens. I have a feeling like eventually what's going to happen is you're going to get curing problems. And I think what's also going to happen is the more pigment you add, the softer the blank may end up, something like that. It's probably not going to harden it, but it should be kind of fun. I like playing with this new kind of product, new thing. It's kind of fun to figure out how it works and all that stuff. So let's see here. Yeah, it's always good to start with small, simple things. And that way, it's just because there's too much to think about. And that's, like I was saying, with the beginner's guide, the resin book. If you're trying to figure out everything about resin casting, I mean, it's too big an umbrella. I still learn things all the time with resin casting. I've been doing it for 15 years, So there's a lot to learn. It's just not that hard though. I mean, if you're talking about very specific little things, and especially when you're, pen blanks are one thing, resin river tables are a totally different thing, epoxy versus this, versus, so there's a lot of stuff going on under the umbrella of resin casting. But if you just focus on the simple things and understand how these things work, then I think it's easier to navigate, and especially if you don't try to complicate the pores in the initial stage. Go for simple things. I think mica powders are the easiest things to work with. Go with the mica powders. Just pick, a couple colors. Don't get like 500 cups lined up trying to get them all done at once. It just makes it hard when there's so many moving parts. Simplify it as much as possible, and then you'll eventually, a lot of the parts just become kind of like, oh, I'm just stirring it. I know how to do this without thinking about it. So it's pretty fun. Finally able to get fountain pen starter kit. Oh, nice. Cool. That's awesome, Randy. Hey, thanks, David. I appreciate the super chat. Well, we got everything wrapped up. Like I said, I mean, at this point, I'm really leaning towards the watermelon pink as being the 5th color. So I'll let you guys know next week. And again, if anybody thinks of, especially if you're watching after, watching the replay, same thing for the question of the day. If you have any suggestions, any types of blanks or colors or whatever you want to see on the stream, let me know. It's always fun to get ideas from you guys. That way we're doing stuff that you guys want to see. So anyway, guys, I hope you have a great rest of the day and weekend. I'm not sure yet what we're going to be doing next week, but hopefully we'll get some good suggestions and we'll pick 1 or 2 of those, and it should be pretty fun on next week's stream. So. I got my sister's birthday party is tonight, so that's pretty exciting. I gotta get some work done and get out of the shop so I can get to the party. So anyway, guys, like I said, have a great rest of the evening, and I'll see you guys on the next stream.